Hello and welcome to the Chris Cabal. I am your host, a Chris named Chris, and with me, my co-host, a Chris named Christopher. Hello, Christopher.
Up, and a hey, nice to be here.
This is our first meeting of the Chris Cabal cults because we have important business.
It's been on our minds, our collective Chris minds for
I want to say
for months now.
It has, because something happened on this podcast that needs to be addressed. It's almost too hard to say.
And I don't. Rage has actually erased the actual inciting incident from my mind. But
let me remind you.
Please tell me the exact, because I know what it is, but tell me exactly what happened.
Well, what happened was, there we were. It was an innocent special episode of its own. We were talking to Justina Ireland and about Harley Quinn, a show that didn't deserve this to happen during its recording.
A fantastic show
That deserved better than what happened on our podcast. And that was that out of nowhere, apropos of almost nothing, probably there was something, but I don't recall anymore. TJ said, I can't.
You can do it. You have to do it.
He said Superman was boring. And that was the sound of our entire Twitter timeline after this podcast episode posted. But we've got to address this and we have to deal with it. So
Can you drag TJ into the room?
I'm going to bring him in. TJ, come in here. We need to talk to you.
Get those shackles off him. It's fine.
Oh my God, please help me. Help.
This is a place for help. This is an intervention.
I have shackles on and I'm starting to chafe.
Not that kind of help. No, we're going to have an intervention.
A super intervention.
Yes. A Superman intervention, if you will. TJ, do you know what you're accused of?
Is
Speak
it blasphemy?
It is blasphemy.
By Rao, it is blasphemy.
TJ, do you still, standing here after we've had you in prison since that episode came out, think that Superman is boring?
Well, I've been forced to read a couple more books about him between then and now, and while he is not my favorite, I do appreciate him more than I did.
Okay, Christopher, you can take the gun away from TJ's head now.
So that was my roundabout answer of like, yeah, he's still kind of boring, but I appreciate him.
Well, maybe by the end of this show, we can get him to repent so that our timeline can finally not be people mad about that comment.
I do. And when you say people, you mean mostly me.
Yeah, by people, I mean me and Christopher, the Chris Cabal.
I do have to shout out Sarwat Chadha because we talked about Super Sons with him, and he really talked about Superman in a way that made me just view the character completely different. So,
good.
Yeah,
exactly.
Without him, I don't know. Oh, well, I would have been here against my will anyway, but I was looking forward to this more than I was before I talked to Sarwat.
His mission was accomplished. I'm sending the check in the mail right now.
Perfect. One of our super sleeper agents.
Yes, there are many secret Chris's that are not Chris's, but are Chris's in spirit.
So you both picked a book for me to read in preparation for this. Do you want to tell me which one you picked or tell our audience which one you picked and why you picked it?
Absolutely. Christopher, do you want to go first?
Sure. I chose The Man of Steel by John Byrne and Dick Giordano. It's from 1986 or 7, and I always forget that because I'm dumb. Because 86 was the crisis, and this issue was published in 2013. That doesn't help. But I chose that one because it was the first modern retelling of Superman's origin. The Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. They eliminated the DC multiverse. All other versions of Superman were gone, and they said, this is our new definitive Superman. And while there have been other origin stories published since then, and I've read a couple of those as well, New 52, even ignoring the New 52, there have been more modern interpretations of Superman's origin. This one by John Byrne, I think the older fans, and I think I represent the older fans, so I'm an older fan at 37, we'll still look back at that one as sort of the definitive comic book Superman.
Oh, is now a good time to say I accidentally read the Snyder Man of Steel adaptation? Just kidding.
You read the script?
Yeah, I don't even know if that exists.
Someone somewhere has it.
There's got to be some sort of adaptation of it, but yeah, there's a novel.
A novelization of it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But
Amazing.
this was an older one, but I saw a lot about like why you picked it. It was very. I could just see why it was a big deal.
Yeah, and it's dated in the way that everything becomes dated like 10 years after it's written. But I still find there are moments in there that are just incredible to me that I absolutely love, and then they resonate through all the comics. Like comics just reference it whether they want to or not, they have to reference it because it's so, at least to me and at least to people my age, it's very definitive.
Yeah, I had never read it before until we were doing this show, and I will say I loved it. So even though it is dated and there's obviously ways where it still really resonated with me.
Awesome. So Chris, what did you ask TJ to read?
I had TJ read, so we had one from old school Superman and one modern Superman. I had him read the first volume of Superman by Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. Volume 1 is Son of Superman. I picked this. Everyone knows my deep, fond obsession with everything Peter Tomasi touches. We have read Super Sons for this show, and this is sort of the adjoining main Superman title. I love this for the same reason I love the show that just came out, which we're going to talk about as well, Superman and Lois Layne. This is Superman as part of a family, as raising his son, and as sort of like a more mature, older, like more into his life kind of established Superman, but still I think really awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one, but it was weird reading about like they weren't Kents, they were Smiths, and I was like,
right.
oh. And that kind of pulled me out of it a little bit and made me feel like I wish I was reading about the real Superman.
That is the real Superman, though.
I know.
So
like, I don't know, it's kind of weird.
Fair enough. I mean, we're introducing you to Superman, so I understand why you'd want to read the like not rebooted version. But this version is one I really like because so he is pulled out of a different universe and has to readjust to the universe we're used to and kind of figure out how to live in this world. And I think it refreshes the main theme and the reason why Superman is interesting, which we'll get into, by having him once again be an outsider.
And the fun thing is that it kind of, for the older fans, the fun thing and the kind of tiny bit of a toxic thing, it is that this is the Superman from before Flashpoint, from before the New 52.
Yeah.
So he's from another universe. He's the old Superman that they eliminated when they created the new Superman when they did the New 52.
Yeah.
So he's the character that if you've been reading the comics for a long time, you'll know who the character is because it's that version of Superman.
Yeah. Why do you think it's toxic? I'm very curious.
It's toxic in the way that I find the reasoning behind making the Snyder Cut a thing. It was kind of toxic. in it's responding to this toxic portion of fandom that is super entitled, and I feel like they're more of a minority. They're just very loud. Yeah. And it's like, everything was better before. Everything was better older. And nothing can ever be good that was made now. So go back and do that thing the way we want it to do. And we're very loud and do it. And so while I appreciate Super Dad so much, and I love, the Dad of Steel, it possibly comes from a tiny bit of a toxic place. That said, I still think it's a good story, and this is not to say that the Snyder Cut is going to be toxic or that Zack Snyder is toxic or anything like that.
Right.
Those are different conversations to have. I just feel like the reasoning behind making this Superman, the current Superman, and the reasoning behind making that film were both not exactly the best.
Yeah, I agree with that. That makes sense to me. I think maybe I have less of association because I wasn't reading comics before this so much, so this is me getting introduced for the first time to something people are nostalgic about.
So does this version of Superman that's in the Son of Superman, do they start going by Kent at some point?
Yeah, they basically take over other Superman's life. There's a really is it in this volume or is it in a later volume where he talks to Batman? TJ, you just read this one. I read this one a while ago.
They talk at the very, very end, but not like anything in depth.
I think it's the next one that they have a deep conversation.
Okay. There's at one point, which is very my super bat shipper heart. He is like, "You're not my husband." It's great. It cracks me up so much. But there is, I think to your point, Christopher, I think that there's definitely a level of the nostalgia, but I kind of love that they bring this nostalgia version of Superman back then to tell stories about privilege, which is what it is. It's kind of like, okay, we'll give you what you want, but you'll have to learn about yourself in the process.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love it. I absolutely love it. But like I said, it's just the origins. I feel like the origin is just people saying that the new 52 is awful and fix it.
And I'm so tired of that. There's plenty of good things about the new 52, and I immediately get canceled on Twitter for saying that.
You and me both.
We have to do another special episode apologizing.
While reading these, I did realize maybe part of the reason why Superman hasn't interested me much is that so like halfway through Son of Superman and having finished Man of Steel already, I was just thinking like, oh, like this is such a large scale story, and like I'm not usually drawn to those, and that's something we've mentioned in a certain episode or two with like the bigger Batman stories. Like I like the more character focused, less intense ones. So like when Superman is like doing all this stuff in space and fighting like these super powerful people, like a lot of times I'm just like, yeah, but I want to go back to that farm and that family. And I really liked those scenes in particular.
Some of the best Superman stories are the small Superman stories.
I agree. I'm fully on board with that. I think that, I had you read the first volume because it wouldn't make sense otherwise, but some of the later volumes where it is a more contained story I actually think are better. Yeah.
And like the Super Sons, but I just really liked that one because it was so character focused and it was kind of just smaller scale. I liked that.
Yeah, I agree. Also, Christopher and I both read Glenn Weldon's Superman unofficial biography.
The unauthorized biography. And I wish he had read it because I did the audiobook.
I know, me too. I missed his voice.
Because he did such a great job with the Batman.
I fell asleep in my prison cell during that one. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
A chunky book. It's a chunky book.
It's very good, though. I feel like it has a lot of the same dynamic quality that Cape Crusade did.
If it's anywhere near as good, I'm sure I would love it.
Yeah. We'll get you to read it one day.
Back in the cell.
Like, no. But why don't we turn our attention then to some of the like big themes, the things about Superman that make him not boring.
I got angry at Glenn Weldon because in the prologue, and I tweeted this and he retweeted me, which is hilarious, but I got angry at him because he nailed Superman in 2 sentences in the prologue. And I'm like, how do you do? I mean, he did it. So obviously you can do it. And it's not that absurd, but like, how did he get there so succinctly? And I hope it was like a 5th draft thing. Because if he nailed that immediately, I'm going to be even more pissed.
I've listened to him be spontaneous on the podcast and say things like that. So it could have been the first draft.
He's that good?
He's that good.
But he hits the 2 central points. And I feel like if these points aren't there, it's not a good Superman story, or at least not one that I like. And I should qualify that. If I say something's not good, I'm just saying it's something that I don't enjoy. I don't mean to yuck anyone's yum.
Yeah.
But he hits it in 2 levels. Like there's 2 things that make Superman Superman. He always puts others before himself.
Yes.
And he never gives up.
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely.
It. That's all you need. It doesn't matter if there's powers. It doesn't matter if he's fighting Eradicator or if he's, flicking a purse snatcher in the face with the tiniest effort of his pinky. Like, all he has to do is put others before himself and never give up, and you have Superman.
100%.
And I feel like fundamentally that's not boring because I feel like so few stories in modern media tell stories about people who are selfless in that way, and it's like a refreshing thing to read something like that. Not to say that you can't tell interesting stories with people who are selfish, or people who
we're a Batman podcast.
Of course.
We get it.
Yeah, of course. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but it's just so like I feel like, and it's the difference between Gotham and Metropolis. It's like I read a Superman book, and if it's a good Superman book that hits those 2 points, it's like the sun just came out.
Yes.
And it's not rainy anymore. It doesn't mean that there's not danger. It doesn't mean that it's not deep. It just makes me happier almost. Yeah. Joyful in a way that I'm still happy reading a Batman book, but I'm joyful reading a good Superman book.
Right. But Batman is like never giving up when the odds are always against you. It's very resilience based, but very dark, right?
Mhm.
Superman is, we can be better, everybody. Like we each individually can be better. I think we need both. Like personally,
definitely.
We need both of those symbols and messages. So that, hits on the first kind of theme that I draw out of Superman when I read or watch him, which is Superman as a person we can follow.
I'll take this moment to say, specifically the point Sarwat conveyed when we talked to him that got me so like, wow, I had never thought about that before, was that Superman is someone that has godlike powers, but doesn't let it corrupt him and still wants to do good and like doesn't abuse that power. And I was like, wow, I've just never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Well, that ties into the other point I was going to bring up. We can kind of talk about these together, as I think they are connected, which is Superman as symbol of like using your power well. And, he is, in many ways, he's an outsider, but he's still like a man, a white man.
Yes.
A straight man, I guess.
Yeah.
Theoretically, some could say. But the point is, he has power in the like ways that people have power, and he has superpowers, and he has his whole journey is using those well and using them to help instead of harm. And
it's how he helps too. He helps in the big ways and the little ways as well. Yeah. One of my favorite moments from the pilot of Superman and Lois, which love that show.
Love that show.
But one of my favorite moments, for a couple reasons, is the flashback in the pilot where he's in the Fleischer era suit, my mom made it for me, yes. Super suit, and he stops the car, he saves the day. But that's not the moment that I love. The moment I love is he turns, he walks over, he picks up the kid's hat that flew off, and he walks over to him and he hands it to him. He's like, here, you drop this. I'm like, who does that? Who would
Superman.
Batman wouldn't do that.
Batman would never. He also, every time he saves someone, there's this moment where they kind of like wave at him and he'll stop what he's doing and wave back. He's such a pure being. There was
some other comic. It was Superman Red and Blue, which just came out this week.
Yes.
And he's like he's fighting some monster, and he's on the ground and he's holding debris up above him, and he turns and he sees a kid and he goes, "You better get home. Your mom's probably worried about you." And it's just that moment of, well, it's super sweet. Dad, but it's just that sweetness of he cares. Yeah. He's not just focused about the bad guy, because he can handle the bad guy. He knows he can, and if he can't, he'll die trying.
Yeah.
But he cares about the little things, and that just makes me so happy.
Me too. There's another moment in the Superman and Lois pilot, which, by the way, love that show. I have to agree loudly. It's everything I wanted it to be. There's a moment when he's like feeling discouraged, because for those who haven't seen it, the show is about him raising teenagers. He can fight supervillains, but teenagers, that's the struggle, which, makes sense. Checks out. And Lois is like giving him a pep talk because he is just like defeated by these 14-year-olds, completely defeated by them. And she's like, what they need from you is to see you being strong and vulnerable. That's Superman.
Was that after the line where Jordan says, you may have been sent here to be a hero, but you sure as hell weren't sent here to be a father?
Okay, I know you make fun of the teenagers.
Oh no, that was one of my favorite parts because it got a reaction from me.
Okay, good. Whoa, you have to keep watching, because just wait till you hear what he calls him in the second episode.
God. I will say I enjoyed it too. Like I don't have the emotional connection to it yet, but I love the concept of like someone with that much power struggling with like their home life. I really like that idea.
Yeah, there's always this element. It becomes a central theme in the show so far. Are you caught up, Christopher?
I'm not. I've only seen the first two.
Okay, I've seen 3. I haven't seen last night's episode. It's sort of a driving theme as Superman is teaching someone else with powers how to control them. So he's imparting what he learned from his parents, and there's this sort of how do you be exceptional without making people feel less? And in the 3rd episode, that's an explicit conversation they have where it's like you are using your powers to make other people feel worse, and that is wrong.
Well, they hit on that in that's the first arc of the John Byrne Man of Steel.
Yes, absolutely.
Pa Kent pulls him aside and he's like, you what are you doing?
Yes, I was going to mention that. I love that scene as well, where he doesn't even totally realize exactly how much he's doing it in that moment, but he has to kind of embrace the fact that he has, this power, this privilege, right? And he has to learn how to use it to help and to uplift people rather than to be better than them. And it's that tension.
My favorite thing that I took away after consuming all of this Superman media, my favorite part or aspect was so it's a concept that I like, which is power being a metaphor for pretty much anything, but in my interpretation, usually it's like for queerness or just feeling different. And I really want the Superman and Lois show to take that metaphor and
make it literal.
Exactly. I'm like, make one of the twins queer, please.
We're looking at you, John Kent.
But the part that actually embraced that in this media was the son of Superman, when we're talking about John, and they want to make him completely Kryptonian, and they're like, no, like that part of him, like to me that read as like a metaphor for being mixed race, or it could have been anything. But that was really powerful.
Get rid of the part of it's anyone who thinks they need to get rid of part of themselves in order to
be better. So I'm like, I want the show to embrace that.
I'm hopeful. There's enough things in it that I feel like they're going somewhere with that metaphor. I don't know if it's going to be queerness, but Arrowverse is not totally averse. Wow, that sentence was a sentence. To having queer characters, so maybe let's knock on wood.
Like if there's any show that will do it, I think it's that one.
So on the CW.
Yeah, just from the track record.
Yeah, we can hope.
And of course the mental health rep was really cool.
Yes, I loved it. It was really well done.
I will just randomly say someone ate crypto in that one book, and I've literally gasped out loud.
In Man of Steel?
No, in Son of
Superman. The Eradicator consumed crypto.
That's right. I forgot.
He literally just flies down his throat, and I was like,
oh gosh, I forgot that happened. Poor Crypto.
It was very funny. He does come back. But it was funny.
That's why I forgot. It wasn't lastingly traumatizing.
Well, not for you. Imagine what it was like for Crypto.
Crypto was like, I've seen things. Here's hoping they get Crypto in the show. We need a super dog representation.
What do you guys think of Lois as a character? Because I thought she stood out.
I would lay down my life in this moment if she asked me to.
Do you mean Lois in general or Lois in this show? Because I can go watch both.
I guess the Loises that we've read in these books and in the show.
The best interpretations of Lois are always stronger than Clark.
Yes.
And interpret that however you want. She's more strong-willed. She's a bit smarter. Not to say that Clark is dumb, but she's a bit smarter. She definitely, she's the more accomplished journalist because he cheats, because he interviews himself.
Oh, yes. And I feel like, again, I'm just going to spend the whole episode being like, the show is perfect. It absolutely lands on those things. Like, she is explicitly called a better reporter, and he's like, yes, she is. Because nobody simps harder for Lois Lane than Clark Kent.
And then there's this beautiful moment where in the pilot, and we all saw it, so spoilers for the pilot, where he thinks they need to move to Smallville, and he thinks that Ma Kent wanted them to move to Smallville. And he brings it to Lois, not expecting that she'll agree, and clearly not saying, like, not any other show, but probably in 80% of other shows, it'd be like, we're moving to Smallville.
Right.
And it'd be the wife's job to go, well, I guess we'll make it work. Where in this one was like, when she said, I think you're right, I think we need to do this, his eyes lit up and he's like, really?
Yes.
You think this is a good idea? Because he wouldn't have, if she thought it was a bad idea, it's not that he would have dropped it, Like he's not completely submissive to her,
No.
but like he respects her opinion so much.
Yeah, he also, I think this is rare, even in Arrowverse. I'm calling you out, Flash. I love Flash, but this is still something that didn't happen on that show. He respects her ability to take care of herself in a way that does not happen for the like quote unquote love interest. She's a main character, but you know what I mean? She's not the superhero, but
she's not a damsel.
She is not a damsel, and he knows it, and she made sure he knew it, and they have full conversations about it, but they're at a point in their relationship where it's established. They just talk about that it has in the past, they've had to have conversations about it, but they're, very mild spoilers for, I guess, the third episode. Something happens where she's in danger, and she says, "I'm fine," and he's like, "Okay, go for it. You do you, girl."
My favorite Lois part from what we watched and read here was in Son of Superman, where she puts on the giant Batman suit and just like
the hell that
shit out of the villain.
Oh, she is such a queen. I'm not even kidding. If she told me to lay down into the road, and I would do it. I would just do it. I would say yes, thank you. She is amazing. One day, maybe for the show, we'll figure out how this counts as a Bat family, and we'll read the Greg Rucka Enemy of the State Lois Lane, because it is perfect.
Oh yeah, when she there's a scene in there where she dresses down Clark for saving her.
Yes, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it's sort of probably a little earlier in their life, but yeah, he respects her ability to read a situation. If she's screaming her head off, he's going to come and rescue her. But if she says I'm fine, he trusts her implicitly. Lois knows what she's doing.
Yes.
She reminded me very much. I literally just watched Scream before recording this today. But she reminds me of Gail Weathers in that like she has some ambition and she can take care of herself, and she's kind of snarky and knows she's intelligent. And I like that kind of character.
Me too. Yeah. I love her confidence. She knows exactly how good she is, and I love it. I love her so much. TJ knows I finished watching the episode last night. I was texting him frantically in the middle of the night going, Lois Lane is my hero and she's perfect.
Lois is essential to the Superman story.
Yeah.
You cannot have a Superman story without Lois, in my humble, I mean, you can, but she needs to be, she makes everything better by contrast of being there. And just a small little thing, and I love it, they'll throw it in places, and they specifically do it in the Greg Rucka Lois Lane miniseries.
Yes.
Where she's great at everything, horrible at spelling.
Yeah. Yes.
Perry's like, don't you have spell check on your computer? She's like, I just keep going, and eventually it gives up.
So
just giving the character a foible like that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm here for her.
Yeah.
This is a little
reason number 3 why Superman is not boring. Lois Lane wouldn't love him if he was boring. Okay, TJ, what do you say to that?
Okay.
The most unfair argument I've ever made.
But if we can just keep going on Lois just for a minute, because I've read it before, but I reread it this morning, The Man of Steel. And can we just talk about the 80s fashion show that we get from panel to panel of Lois Lane?
Yes.
She's wearing a different outfit in every scene where she's looking for Superman to try to get that interview. And then the scene where she goes to Clark's apartment.
And lifts weights casually.
That outfit where she's lifting weights for no reason.
Or the scene where she wears nothing and strips in front of them. I love that.
Give me your coat.
Yeah, like
she wasn't
going to let any man control her, and she took off that dress, and it was great.
Yes, she's such a queen. I can't. This has just turned into a simping for Lois podcast now.
It was gonna happen.
It was always gonna happen.
So who is your favorite like Superman family character, including like all the other ones?
But not Lois, right?
Not Superman or Lois.
I guess don't pick them. So anyone else.
TJ is like, we've heard enough about your thoughts about
like
Lois.
Superboy, one of the Superboys. Who else there is that I don't know?
Well, there's Supergirl, there's Crypto, there's I mean,
there's multiple Superboys.
This is on brand for me because I wrote I had a podcast about supervillains. Lex Luthor.
Oh, Lex Luthor is a badass. I love him.
I love him. I love all the versions of him. I love him when he's just a creepy businessman. I like him when he's a super scientist. I like him when he's a super scientist businessman.
I like him when he's Superman for a little while.
I like him when he's heroic or tries to be heroic. That tickles me so much.
In Super Sons, he's running around in the Superman suit and is being Superman and catches Damian Wayne and John Kent breaking into his lab and is just annoyed. Like, he's not upset. He's just like, why? I'm not even doing anything.
This time.
This time I'm not doing, like, can you chill? So good. I love it.
I even love the fact that his original impetus was the fact that Superboy blew his hair off. Yeah, TJ, if you didn't know this, the origin of Superman was of Lex Luthor rather, is that he was a super scientist that knew Clark as a kid, and he knew Superboy, and he was dealing with chemicals in his lab, and there was a fire, and Superboy used his super breath to blow out the fire, and it blew his hair off, and that's why he's bald.
Oh my gosh. Now, was this before Lex Luthor was also Superboy's dad as well?
Way before. That was much later. Wow. Superboy's clone dad. One of many Superboy's clone dads. Wow, we're gonna get really in the weeds with this question.
My two clone dads.
Connor Kent and his two dads.
I know, we love him so much. It's hard. I know we're like dodging the question. It's actually hard to answer. I love Connor Kent and John both a lot, and Supergirl. I don't know. I was probably between Con and John, the rhyming sons. But not John Prime, not Superboy Prime. We talked about this last night as well. TJ had not heard of Superboy Prime.
Oh
no,
the young man who punches reality to bring back Jason from the dead. So
yeah,
at least he did that.
Yeah,
he brought back Jason Todd.
He gave us Jason Todd because of reality punching.
No, I like him already.
He has a redemption in Future State. Oh no, not in Future State, in Death Metal, which I appreciate.
That's nice. I like a redemption.
They gave Superboy Prime a redemption, and all it took was Crypto giving him big puppy dog eyes.
You know what? That makes sense to me. Checks out.
How do you guys feel about Supergirl and her adaptation, and the other adaptation, which is going to be a Latina Supergirl?
Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't care for the Supergirl show as much. I always liked her in the crossovers. I tried the show. I couldn't get into it. Mon-El, I just can't.
I'm an apologist for Mon-El, but I
liked Mon-El. I thought he was fine.
He grew.
I heard that he grew. I didn't make it past him being an abusive a-hole when he first was introduced.
I liked bearded Mon-El coming back from the future.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that was better. I didn't make it.
Yeah.
He definitely mansplained a little bit.
So much.
Or a lot.
My gosh, all the time. In a show that was supposed to be explicitly feminist. I just can't. I'm like, why do we have to have this straight white man mansplaining all the time in the feminist show?
Well, I'm hoping he's not straight.
I can't even imagine. I wish
that
I could.
Mansplain to me all day.
I liked the Supergirl show. I feel like they were leaning heavily into Kara being in a relationship with Lena Luthor.
Yes.
They didn't pull the trigger.
I know.
And I'm like, it's there. And like the actresses are doing it. They may lie and say they're not doing it, but they're doing it.
One of them didn't. Lana, what is her name? Sorry.
Lena Luthor.
Lena, sorry, I was like, wait, there's too many L's.
Oh, did she say that she was really playing it that way?
She was absolutely. She ships it. She was like, it's gay. It's gay. They can't tell me it isn't.
I feel like the show is like, we made one sister gay.
I know,
like, that's enough.
That's bi erasure, first of all.
Right.
I know. It's true though. I mean, that show had a lot of problems, like multiple controversies of like people going, hey, why did you do this? And them getting upset and then having to apologize.
And they gave us Dreamer with the first on-screen trans woman superhero. So there was some goodness about that.
Soon.
Yeah, she is.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. It's not like I don't think I would have hated it. I just got so frustrated that I couldn't keep going with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have that problem with much of the Arrowverse, to be fair.
Yeah. I do like Supergirl. I enjoyed the show. I got to like after season 3, there's kind of a point that was like, all right, you can jump off now. But I really love Alex, and her relationship with her sister was just so good.
And John Cryer's Lex Luthor was a lot of fun.
I didn't even get to that yet.
Oh no!
I saw him in like the Crisis crossover, but that was it.
He's very campy, very, very chewing the scenery, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Lex Luthor should chew the scenery. That's his deal.
And the meta fact that he played Lex Luthor's nephew in Superman 4.
Yeah.
And then is now which is you don't need to watch that one. I love them casting like all of the old actors who used to play these other characters as either versions of their old characters or new characters. I love that about the CW. So
me too.
They're problematic at times. They're not as good as they should be at times, but I tend to love them. And now I'm simping hard for Superman and Lois, even though Superman and Lois is not a good name for a show. I understand there was weird. Lois and Clark. Lois and Clark is a great name for a show, but that already happened, so they can't do it again. But
I know it's a strange name, but I do love it too. And to be fair to Arrowverse, I only complain about it because I love it so much.
Yes. If we didn't love about it, we wouldn't care. We wouldn't say anything.
I know. Flash is still one of my favorite shows that I'm so far behind on because I rage quit it pretty frequently and then go back to watching it. So I'm on season 5 in case people are curious. One day I will get over how annoying Nora is. Anyway,
but she's queer. Forgive her.
I'm glad she's queer. I just wish she was also not annoying.
Fair.
Nope. You get one or the other.
Okay.
I know. You're either queer or annoying.
No, you're either queer or you're not annoying.
I know.
That too.
I would have been fine if Citizen Cold stayed on as our queer rep. That would have been great.
Wentworth Miller should be on everything.
He should be.
Yes. I know he didn't stick around.
He just didn't want to, and so I can't begrudge him not wanting to do it. Not. But also, I wish that he had. That's all.
Yeah.
But we're getting off topic.
That was my plan.
Oh, no, you're not going to get us off topic of Superman for long.
No.
So we've talked about Superman as a story about power. We've talked about him as a person, sort of a role model. I think it's also really important, and this is Glenn Weldon talks about this a lot in his book, Superman as an immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
So this is sort of one of the essential parts of his character. And we can talk about how it can get, kind of messy in the same way like the mutant metaphor does for X-Men. Not quite as badly, I think. Right. Thinks about it a minute, maybe. Depending on who's writing it. But,
flashing back to that Cure.
As we stare, that long stare of people that had to watch that. Anyway. But, he was written... He was written by these two young Jewish men who felt like outsiders, who were treated like outsiders. And they wrote this character who was an immigrant in a very literal sense, an actual alien. And a lot of his story is about being other and learning how to embrace his past and his present and kind of that difficulty, that tension that exists.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And I think it's probably one of the reasons why, and not to change the subject with this, but it's why the modern movies Christ imagery bothers me.
Yeah. Because he was made by Jewish people. And
it's very clearly, well, it's not very clearly, but it's much more Moses imagery in the original. He's like, found in the basket on the river, and then raised as something that he's not.
100%.
But as an immigrant, as an outsider, I mean, it's interesting that he's the outsider when he can pass. And I don't, in some ways, I don't feel like I'm the right person to talk about this because I am a cis white straight male. So obviously my experiences are that.
And then if you want to read it as explicitly that, you can pick up Superman Smashes the Klan, where that's...
I was waiting for you to bring that up.
I was getting there, which is just the best.
Just tell us you like Superman Smashes the Klan.
I love it. Okay, I'm getting there. Guru Hari, who drew my avatar on Twitter, if people are curious, because I worked on the Marvel project one time. So that's my claim to fame. Name drops so casually. So TJ, this is one you love. This is a Superman story you love. Yes. So tell us about that.
Oh my gosh. So I just liked this one. Again, it's a small scale story where Superman is just helping a family. And this was the first Superman book I had ever read a few months back, or a year. We've been in quarantine for a while.
Who can say?
But I just
16 years ago, I read this.
Yeah, it's been a while. But him being an immigrant was just something I had never thought about. So the fact that the book just makes the parallel between him being an immigrant and this, I think it's a Korean American family, and just like the parallels between them and how they relate and not being accepted. I just thought that was really beautiful, and it was like refreshingly from like after like I just said we read the ones for this podcast and they were kind of large scale. This one was refreshing in that like it wasn't what I expected from Superman, and I just loved it.
Yeah, and it's taking Superman back to a sort of literal origin, right?
Yes.
Like that. So Superman, I feel like we've talked about this on the show already, but it's a good enough story. We're going to talk about it again. Superman being a character that was written by Jewish people, and like that was a continual thing in the history of Superman. There was a period in time where the Superman radio show explicitly, like the writers of it were using it to basically tell on what was happening with the Klan, the actual Klan in real life. So Superman would go to where they knew actual Klan meetings were and stop them, and so then it ended up scaring them off from meeting because in real life, in actual real life.
That's so cool.
Right?
Yeah.
They used it as like a coded isn't even that. It was like a threat, I guess. Like we know who you are and we're going to tell you in this way.
Well, it wasn't even coded, because I think and I haven't read the book, and there's a book about Superman and the radio show, and it's like a nonfiction book that talks about this. And in it, like I believe one of the writers, or somehow they got a hold of like all of these code words that the Klan used, and like these code names, and like, well, I'm not a lieutenant in the Klan, I'm a warlock, and that guy's a Cyclops, and like it's very silly and laughable, and the whole point was taking this sort of scary image of like these guys wearing these white robes and holding torches, and it's like, no, they're ridiculous, they're wrong, they're ridiculous, and we should laugh at them, and also Superman should go and punch them in the face. I feel fine with Superman punching Nazis. I think everyone should support that.
I 100%, we are pro punching Nazis on the show.
Or Klansmen.
Or Klansmen, either one.
Yes.
Yeah, so this story that Superman smashes the Klan is fictionalizing a way that Superman actually changed our culture. So he not only saves people in fiction, but he did actual heroics as a fictional character in our real reality.
I really like the idea that Christopher brought up of Superman being like a metaphor for like straight passing or white passing. Just, he's an alien, but he doesn't look like an alien. And I found that really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this comes up maybe more even explicitly in Super Sons, where he's talking to John about this, right? Like we talked about this when we talked about the first volume, where he's kind of explaining to John how to live and try to figure out, do you want to hide who you really are? Do you want people to know? And what is that balance?
Yeah, and I think a part of it that hits me very hard is this understanding of when you say who you really are, and what does that mean? Because there's genes, and then there's how you're raised. So one of the reasons why the current movies by Zack Snyder, while gorgeous to look at, don't appeal to me as much is because they seem to be saying that who you are is your genes more than how you were raised. And not to change the subject again, I feel like that's all I'm doing is changing the subject, but like I feel like that's the fundamental problem I have with those films, is that they don't see Superman as Clark Kent.
Yeah, they're kind of deterministic too. They're like, he doesn't have as much say in
he's a savior. He's Jesus in these films, and he's here to sacrifice himself, which is an interpretation, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying it's an interpretation I don't like. And I prefer, like, when he says, like, well, who are you really? And like if he's dealing with John, or on the television show with John and Jordan, I feel like part of it is who you really are is Jonathan or Jordan or Clark, and what you can do is part of you, and denying that would be denying part of yourself, but that's not all you are.
There's a really fantastic conversation in the show where he talks about who he is because of his dad, and then he clarifies, he's like, my dad's, he's like, I have Jor-El, I have that part of me, but I also have Jonathan. Sorry, just pulled a blank on what
Pa Kent.
Pa Kent, Jonathan, Jonathan Senior Kent. What his, he has those, both of those are part of him. They are both him, and they, not one or the other wins out. And he has a whole conversation with them about that, which is really, I'm just gonna cry over this show this whole episode. I love it.
Well, you pointed out something we haven't mentioned, which is that he's adopted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And that's really, that's something important to have represented as well.
Absolutely. He's adopted, and it's not one of those stories, even when he, in some of the versions, he doesn't know right away who he is, as far as being an alien or whatever. But even in those versions, it's never like, this is your real family. It's always like, this is your biological family, and we're also still your real family, which is such a powerful thing that I feel like a lot of stories about adoption get wrong.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, and just because it's on my mind, I rewatched Man of Steel recently.
Yeah.
And one of the things they get right, and it's in comics all the time, is where he's talking with his dad, and he's like, "Can't I just be your son again?" He's like, "You are my son." Like that's he is. And that's a beautiful moment there, how they deal with Pa Kent later, I object to. But in that moment is this beautiful moment of, that's Clark is who he is. He's not Kal-El. He's not just a person with a power fantasy. You can tell interesting stories of people with Superman powers and who have, like Brightburn, I think, was a horror film of a little kid with Superman powers that's like evil.
Yes.
Which I'm sure it's good. Like there's comics, all sorts of different comics that have different stories that are super interesting. The Boys on Amazon with Homelander, who's basically a sociopathic Superman.
Or Superboy Prime.
Superboy Prime, exactly. But the fact is, he is first and fundamentally a human, and a good person who was raised by his parents to be a good person, as nebulous as that term is. Yeah. And secondly, he is this all-powerful, nearly unlimited power god or godling. And I think some of the movies get that wrong.
I agree. I think. And why I had TJ read the one that I had him read was because ultimately to me, and I know I've said the same thing about Batman, but ultimately to me, Superman is most interesting as family man, as father, or as mentor, which he often falls in that role as well. One of my absolute favorite depictions of Superman is in the most recent Wonder Twins comic. Have you read that one, Christopher?
I have not.
So good. Mark Russell writes it. It made me sob many times. But Superman gets to be, so he's not a main character, but he's in every one of the issues as the person who's kind of teaching the Wonder Twins how to be people in this world, basically. And there's the story that is told is explicitly about privilege and power and the ways that society is corrupt and is biased. And it's very beautiful. And there's all these moments where Jan usually will be talking to Superman and saying, like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to save this world if it's going to be this fucked up, basically. Right. And it's all these moments of him talking about how, yes, like it is. It's because she kind of has this, like, you don't get it. You think everything is great. He's like, no, I don't. I know it's bad. I just believe people can be better. And that's all the conversations he has with her is like, how do we be the people that inspire people to be better?
Having talked about the Snyder movies so much, no, in a good way. It keeps making me think about, I forget what trailer it's from, maybe for Batman v Superman, but there was a line in almost every trailer where it's Clark's mom, and she's saying, you don't owe this world anything, you never did. And to me, like, that's the other aspect of him that I find interesting, is that if we're looking, like, realistically, he doesn't owe anyone anything, but the fact that he still helps people because he wants to. And in comparison, like, I love Spider-Man, and his whole thing is, with great power comes great responsibility. Like, that's, it's almost the opposite of that, but in like in the best way of, like, no, you don't owe anyone anything, and you're still going to help them, and that's still a very powerful message.
I agree. And I think it's also interesting to look at him in contrast. We are, Gotham Outsiders here. We're a Batman podcast. I think it's interesting in contrast to Batman, who is like righting a wrong that happened to him. Like, he had a bad life, right? And that is why he does this. Superman did it. He had a great life. Like, he loved his life, but he still does good. It's not a like, I am drawn to do good because terrible things happen to me. It's, I'm drawn to do good because good people raised me and they taught me that this is what good is.
Yeah.
And I
he
think
could
both
set
are
him
powerful.
up. Yeah, he could set himself up as a god. He could set himself up as king of the planet if he wanted to. And that's boring.
Yeah.
I've read Injustice.
Some of my favorite things that you can do with Superman is when he doesn't fight to win. Because he is so powerful, he can stop sometimes and just say, let's have a conversation.
Yes, that happens in Tomasi's run. When he's fighting Swamp Thing at one point, and he is like fighting him, but then he's like, why are we fighting? Let's just chat a minute. Let's have a moment. Like, what's going on here, bud? Why are you mad?
Right.
And they like just talk it out. And Swamp Thing's like, the world, the environment, I'm just sad, you know. And Superman's like, yeah, that's real messed up.
Yeah. So
I find it so charming.
I think I'm at a point with Superman where I will take back what I said earlier in the episode. I do not find him as a character boring, but many of the stories around him are not my cup of tea. But if we were to just explore all these themes we're talking about, I really like all of those. So like, I need to find those books that are geared to my personal taste, I think.
He can be boring, and I feel like he can be boring if the writer doesn't know how to write him.
Yes. So that's kind of my final thing I wanted to talk about. Why do we think, because you're not the only one, TJ, as much trouble as we are giving you for saying that, people have said that. It's not like you're the first person to say Superman is boring. And obviously we have presented our, doctorate level thesis on why he isn't, but why, why do people think that he is? What do you two think is the reason that perception exists?
I think part of it is that his original, and I got this from Glenn Weldon's book, is that when Siegel and Schuster invented him, part of his creation was just the novelty of someone who couldn't be beaten. Yeah. And you as the reader know that, but the characters don't know that. And it's just funny. It's more of a comedic thing. It's like he walks in the room and they shoot at him and they're like, haha, they don't know that it's just going to bounce off me and I'm going to crush their gun in their hands and then throw them in the air at 500 feet. And there was just something like, it's like watching a weightlifter or watching a strongman at the circus. It's just fun seeing someone who can do things well, do them well. Yeah. And the problem is if you just keep doing that, it gets to the point where it can get repetitive and very, very boring.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say too, I think part of the problem that we existed in comics right now where I think we're trying to pull ourselves out of was a long period of cynicism, right? Yeah. And I think that you cannot write a good Superman story and be cynical. People have tried, and I think those stories are bad. Mostly, maybe not all of them. But a lot of them aren't good because I think that Superman is at his core sincere. And we went through as a comics culture a period where sincerity was stared at sideways, right? Like, and as a culture largely, it wasn't just comics, but certainly like 90s, early 2000s was a time period where we're like, sincerity, I don't know about that. I'm skeptical. And we briefly thought that cynicism equaled intelligence. And so Superman in that way seems dumb. I think if you look at him as a sincere character and you think sincerity is not smart, I think he can seem like dumb or childish. But
like my take on it, at least my personal reason of not being interested in him before now, was that when I just glance at him, I'm like, oh, he is perfect and beautiful. And he's every straight man, it's like straight white man's like dream to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just that first glance. But I'm learning there's more to him than that.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, no, I'm not at all, because I know you're not like that, TJ. I'm not saying this is you. I think that the response to that, the comics that were made in response to that feeling are part of what's bad. Like, I think there was a level of like, okay, so let's corrupt him. Like, then we will make him interesting. And instead it didn't work.
See, I like the sincerity. I just didn't know he had that aspect to him, I think.
I think that's what I'm saying.
Value.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying is that you had a lot of the comics and movies when they weren't writing him as sincere, and I don't think those are as interesting. That's kind of what I meant.
Gotcha.
And then there's just a certain number of writers who it's one of those things, if they have a hammer, everything's a nail, and they have this guy who can punch really hard, and they're just going to give him things to punch really hard. And I think the most one of the most interesting things you can do for Superman is give him problems he can't solve with his fists.
Yes, I agree.
And one of those is keeping his family safe because he can't be in, 3 places at once. One of those is in the comics. There's one comic, for example, where, Pa Kent dies of a heart attack. And it's and that happens in the pilot of Superman and Lois Layne. Yeah. But like, that's not something he can solve. He can go as fast as he can. He can be as strong as he can. That's not a problem that he can fix with his superpowers. There are scenes where they've done this a couple times where he talks a jumper off of a roof because he just sits down and talks with them. And he could just pluck them out of the air. Like if it was Batman would just grapple their legs, tie them up, and then send them to hopefully not Arkham, but somewhere to
probably Arkham, because Batman has one solution.
Because it's Batman. But no, so he'll sit and talk, and he's like, at any point he could just grab them and bring them to the ground and force them to at least go home, if not prevent what they're doing. But he'll just sit and talk to them, and I think that's when you give him problems that can't be solved by punching, it's the best Superman story.
Because at the end of the day, Batman is a very much ends justify the means character. He has no problem punching Dick Grayson in the face to get a tracker off of him, right? Like for example, but Superman has the ends. Like he could always be the ends, and he instead chooses to make the best possible means.
That's perfect. I think you nailed it.
Thank you. I'm done for the day.
Does that mean you will give me the key to these shackles now?
I feel like I need you to watch the rest of Superman and Lois and then read all of Glenn Weldon's book, and then I will let you out. Okay.
I mean, we can recommend so many different Superman books and Superman movies. If you have not to promote for them, they didn't send me any money, but if you have HBO Max, a lot of the animated Superman films are really good.
Yeah. So I love the old Justice League cartoon. I feel like that's a great Superman. I also really love Legion of Superheroes that nobody ever remembers, but it was so fun. And it's Superman as a teenager, and it's very cute.
I did watch the new origin movie on HBO Max for him.
Yeah.
That Man of Tomorrow, maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brand new. I haven't seen that one yet.
I watched that one. Yes, and if you like Lois, she has a pretty good personality in that.
Good. And then there's The Death of Superman and then The Reign of the Supermen that I love that they have a married man and a married couple play Clark and Lois.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's Jerry O'Connell and Rebecca Romaine. As Clark and Lois, which I love the fact. It's just a cute little thing they didn't have to do, but I'm like, yes, that's
I need to watch that. I hear Cameron Monaghan is Superboy, and I love both of them.
Oh, rad. Yeah. I don't hear anybody mentioning Smallville. Are we just gonna not talk about Smallville?
I didn't watch it when I was I didn't get into comics really until I was in college. I watched Justice League, I watched Batman the animated series, I liked Superman, but like it just didn't hit me I wasn't a teens being angsty show.
That's fair.
When I should have probably.
That's all I watch.
I didn't watch Buffy either. Like I could have been watching Buffy, and I didn't. I watched it in college later. My roommate introduced me when I went to college, but I didn't watch it at the time because teen angsty shows just didn't appeal to me. I was still watching, Justice League, the cartoon, and Batman the animated series. I'm like, I don't need. Give me gargoyles. I don't need Smallville. I'm sure it was great, and I've heard good things from my friends who have seen it, but it just didn't hit it for me.
I also haven't watched it. I just felt that we couldn't do this whole podcast without saying Smallville.
I'm tempted to go back and at least watch the pilot, but like there's so many episodes. I know I can't.
Oh wait, no, it is
10 seasons.
So long, and it's got a very like One Tree Hill of superhero shows vibe, but I also love One Tree Hill, so maybe I will watch it.
Apparently Clark was supposed to be 14 at the start of that show, but he looks like he's like 26 or something.
Oh my god.
Because I complained on Twitter about the twins looking older than 14 on Superman and Lois.
That's so funny to me. I've got to shout this out. The Superman and Lois is the first the very first of all the superhero shows that my partner will watch with me.
Ooh.
I know. I was so delighted because they hate superheroes. Ironically, but love this one. And one of the things they said was that those teenagers actually look like teenagers. And you're right, they don't totally look 14, but they certainly don't look 26 like
right.
usual.
They are actually teenagers. Jordan is 16 in real life and John is 19. And then part of me is like, they're twins. They don't look the same age.
they don't look the same age. That's fair.
But way better casting than a 26-year-old, 14-year-old Clark.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
I
not
think
Tom Welling.
Well, my homework after this, I am going to read the Lois Layne Greg Rucka series.
Yes.
Enemy of the People, I think it's called.
Yes.
Probably. I haven't researched that.
I think I called it Enemy of the State earlier, but you're right. It's Enemy of the People.
And it has the question in it, both versions.
Ooh.
It's
Yes.
phenomenal.
But not Tim Drake, the question, sadly.
If he even exists, I don't. I mean, they tease that. That better happen, but that's a different episode entirely.
There is a mini series about Supergirl by Mariko Tamaki. I want to try that. And I believe there's another mini series called Superman. Was that Man of Tomorrow? I forget. Anyway, it's another origin YA, more recent, and that sounds like my thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
And what I'm hearing is we've convinced you that Lois Layne is awesome and that Superman's fine.
Yes.
This isn't what I set out for, but I will take it.
It's what you're getting.
Yeah, you love Lois. I mean, Lois. If Lois loves Clark, then we love Clark.
Exactly.
Yeah. We
do what Lois Lane tells us to do.
Yes, ma'am.
That is the central tenet of the Chris Cabal.
What was that? What did Lois say to us? Okay, yes.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
We read the scripture of Lois Lane. Wait, TJ, come back! Wait!
Close the door! Close it! No! He's
he found the trap door to the Batcave. Oh no! This is going to be a problem.
I thought this was our podcast now. I thought it was just going to be you and me, and we were going to be talking about Superman and Lois Lane every week.
I know, but I think he might come back. What are we? I don't know. Maybe we can change the locks. He stole my motorcycle. He's gone. He's going full.
Your bat-themed motorcycle. Why did you keep that around?
Why wouldn't I keep that around? It's awesome.
Okay,
Christopher, thank you for coming on and trying to convert TJ with me.
Thank you so much for having me. We've been throwing this idea around for a while of having this intervention. You didn't have to do it, and you brought me back for it, and I love you for it. Thank you so much.
I love you too.
And the final reason, I think this is the nail in the proverbial coffin, TJ. The reason you have to love Superman is it's Nightwing's favorite superhero.
Yeah. If no one simps harder for Lois Lane than Clark Kent, then no one simps harder for Clark Kent than Nightwing.
I'm not even here right now. I already rode off on a motorcycle. I don't know what y'all are doing.
We'll send him a coded message that he can figure out.
He'll get it on the Superman beeping watch that I gave him.
Right. Did you tell him you gave him that? Does he know?
No, it'll be a surprise.
Okay. That's even more fun.